Okay, again, welcome to our June 2026 Cloud Office Hours for the DIB, presented by Planet Technologies, and you already own it. This month, we're going to be talking about M365 G5 and CMMC L2 compliance and Copilot in GCC High. Before we get started, a couple things I do want to note. Jason Elwart is our new program lead. He'll be taking over from Casey. If you have been with the program for a while, you will have met Casey. I'd like to welcome Jason to our team, have him put his contact information in the chat, and we're really glad to have him here on board. We also have Kim Snyder, who is our benefits coordinator that works with our customers to schedule briefings, workshops, our monthly newsletter, and making sure that any of your questions submitted to the program are answered quickly. We have our cloud strategist team, myself, Ken Nubler, Scott Derby, and we're always available to be supporting our DIB customers. And then lastly, our executive sponsor, Steve Winter. So as always, if you have questions outside of this particular arena, you can always email you already own it at go-planet.com. This will get over to our team, and we're happy to follow up with you and work and try to resolve whatever question you might have. Okay, so again, welcome to our session here. Quick agenda. We're going to talk about the challenge of CMMC L2 and why it matters now. We'll talk about our point of view and what we've identified as 5 key questions that most customers have and need to get answered. What's M365 G5 unlocks for CMMC L2? The data governance and Copilot connection. This is a really big one right now happening across our organizations that we support. Some common mistakes and customer stories. We'll do a recommended roadmap and a risk matrix for executives. And then we'll kind of wrap up with how Planet helps with that. And we'll do a live demo of some of the things we talked about. So we're going to start off with a poll question real quick. And this is really about understanding what the current stance on G5 is. And so this is already about, not necessarily about the feature set, but just whether your organization is and where you're at in that process. Let some results come in there. Okay. So we'll continue to watch those. Already made the move or considering seem to be the 2. So hopefully this session can be educational. And for those who are considering but need more info, that'll get you to a good state. But again, always available to ask questions. Speaking of questions, if there are questions, please put them in the chat or use the Q&A function. And then we've got a section at the end which we'll answer, or if it can be done in chat, we'll go ahead and provide an answer there. With that, I'd like to welcome Ryan Westmoreland, who's our practice lead for infrastructure, who's going to be leading the presentation today. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Thanks all for coming. I really appreciate your time and joining us for this You Already Own It session. So here's the challenge as we see it for defense industrial-based leaders. CMMC has moved from a theoretical preparation to real contract and assessment pressure. You're being told you need GCC or GCC High, you need CMMC readiness, new policies, new tooling, and eventually, of course, a C3PAO assessment. And most leaders honestly don't know which of those actions are truly required, which are optional and which create expensive rework if they're doing them in the wrong order. The quotes on the right here are things we hear almost every single week at Planet. We don't know what licenses we need. We have the tools, but we don't know how to configure them. We're paying for third-party tools that we think might overlap with what we already own. So the real question usually isn't, do I need G5? It's more, what am I not using that I already paid for inside of the suite that we have access to, right? Why does this matter right now and not next year? So there are a few key reasons. The CMMC2 rulemaking is finalized, assessments are live, and C3PAOs are scheduling. The clock is ticking. DoD contracts from prime down to subs increasingly are requiring demonstrated readiness just to do business. At the same time, Copilot and AI adoption is accelerating at a breakneck pace, but data governance is a prerequisite for that. It's not an afterthought. We're also seeing a lot of third-party tool sprawl. We've got organizations spending heavily on Varonis and Proofpoint, Mimecast and CrowdStrike and Netscope and all of these other third-party tools when there are native G5 capabilities that may already cover these requirements. And underneath all of it, cost pressure is real. If you can take, some of these items that you're paying for and really move them over into the G5 suite, there of course is cost recovery there that is really materializes. Duplicate tooling and rushed remediation are of course expensive, so getting it right the first time actually matters. So let me share Planet's point of view because it shapes everything that follows in the presentation. The biggest mistake we see is treating CMMC as an IT tooling project. It really isn't. It's an operational readiness program that involves security, contracts, leadership, your users, policies, evidence, and ongoing governance. Second, GCC High is necessary for a lot of you, but it's not a magic compliance button. M365 G5 is not just a license upgrade either. Configured correctly, it's a security and compliance force multiplier. Planet has deployed more than 400 customers in GCC High, and the pattern is consistent. Success really comes from knowing what you have, configuring it properly, and operating it consistently. Those three things in that order. If you take nothing else from today, take these 5 questions because they really sequence the whole effort. One, what do we actually need to protect? Define your CUI scope because that drives everything downstream. Two, what level of CMMC do we need and why? Level 1, 2, and 3 are very different in requirements and effort. Three, is our Microsoft environment sufficient? GCC versus GCC High, G3 versus G5, the platform and licensing matter. Four, what evidence will assessors expect? This is where a lot of organizations get surprised. The technical controls pass, but the audit fails on documentation and process. And five, what should we do in the next 30, 60, and 90 days? Sequencing is everything. And of course, the wrong order means rework and cost, which we all want to try to avoid. So this is the heart of it. Here's what moving to G5 actually unlocks against CMMC level 2. Intra ID Plan 2 gives you conditional access, privileged identity management, terms of use, and risk-based authentication. Defender for Office 365 Plan 2 brings safe links, safe attachments, and anti-phishing impersonation protection. Purview Information Protection gives you sensitivity labels, auto labeling, and advanced DLP. Defender for Endpoint Plan 2 delivers endpoint detection and response, automated investigation and remediation, vulnerability management, and advanced hunting. You also get insider risk management for that behavioral threat detection and a full year of audit log retention, which is really important for compliance. The key point, and we'll prove it on the next several slides, is that these aren't just nice security features. They map directly to specific CMMC level 2 and NIST 800 171 controls, and also more expansive into the level 3 items as well. So let's start at the base, at the foundation, which is identity. Powered by Intra ID Plan 2, on the capability side, you've got risk-based sign-in policies, privileged identity management for just-in-time admin access, MFA for everyone, including admins, terms of use enforcement, self-service password reset, and conditional access tied to device compliance. Now look at the controls on the right-hand side that these satisfy. Separation of duties, least privilege, non-privileged accounts, preventing non-privileged execution of privileged functions, privacy and security notices, monitoring remote access, and verifying external connections. That's 7 access control requirements addressed by configuration you already have entitlement to with G5. The business impact is straightforward. You reduce your unauthorized access risk, you enable just-in-time admin, and frankly, this is the first thing an assessor expects to see from the baseline security implementation. Next, we move into email and collaboration protection through Defender for Office 365. Safe Links gives you real-time URL detonation. Safe Attachments sandboxes files before they reach the user. And you've got anti-phishing impersonation protection plus anti-spam and anti-malware policies, all surface through unified alerting in the Defender portal. On the control side, this covers protecting against malicious code, keeping that protection updated, periodic and real-time scans, controlling mobile code, and monitoring for attacks. The business angle here is one that a lot of you will care about. This can replace or augment a third-party email security product like Proofpoint with native integration and a single pane of glass across M365. That's one less console, one less contract, and one less integration to maintain for your administrative staff. This slide is part of the foundation as well of the conversation, so I'll slow down here. Purview information protection and DLP. These seem complex while at their base aren't so complex to implement, but really paint a picture of how compliance and how you protect your data. The capabilities are sensitivity labels, both manual and auto-applied, data loss prevention with override with justification, incident reports and alerts, endpoint DLP that can block USP, printing, and clipboard actions, trainable classifiers to help identify CUI, and custom sensitive information types for things like CUI, ITAR, and EAR. On controls, this hits controlling the flow of CUI, protecting and limiting access to media, creating and retaining your audit logs, tracing user actions, and incident handling. Here's the mental model. Labels define what's sensitive. DLP enforces the rules. Put them together and you're protecting CUI consistently across email, Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, and the endpoint itself. Rounding out the technical stack, we also have Defender for Endpoint Plan 2. This extends all the way down to the device. You get full EDR, which is endpoint detection and response, automated investigation and remediation, vulnerability management, security recommendations and exposure management, threat analytics, those rich KQL-based advanced hunting queries, and device and network discovery. From a control standpoint, this is your continuous monitoring story, identifying unauthorized use, scanning for and remediating vulnerabilities, correcting system flaws, and supporting incident handling. The business impact here is twofold. So first, it gives assessors the continuous monitoring evidence they're looking for. And second, for a lot of organizations, it's a credible replacement for things like CrowdStrike or Tenable, which again, folds 2 more products back into the platform you already own for that cost reduction or cost savings. So now I want to step away from features for a minute because this is where projects succeed or fail. Data governance is not a tooling problem. It's an operating model. Data identification is the #1 challenge we see. Most organizations can't clearly say what CUI they have, where it lives, or who can access it. Trainable classifiers help, and they're available even in G3, but they need training, data, and tuning. So don't expect plug and play accuracy from these features. And this is the big one. Labels without governance are just decoration. It's window dressing. You need ownership, processes, and enforcement, not just technology. So the governance structure has to come first. Who owns labeling? Who responds to a DLP incident? Who manages exceptions? Answer those before you deploy broadly, or you'll just be redoing it later. Here's part of the payoff that connects everything, the Copilot connection. As I stated before, AI, of course, is expanding at breakneck speed. The same G5 controls that protect CUI and support CMMC Level 2 are also the security baseline for safely enabling Copilot. Copilot respects sensitivity labels, so it only draws from content the user can already access, though oversharing still absolutely matters. Purview DLP can block sensitive prompts, so you can stop Copilot from responding to anything involving a CUI or ITAR label. Defender for Endpoint can monitor AI tool usage, including a browser plugin that detects data being copied into external tools like ChatGPT. And Insider Risk Management adds behavioral context to catch anomalous access that could signal misuse. The takeaway here is the one I want you to remember. Data governance is the prerequisite, compliance is the outcome, and Copilot readiness here is really the bonus. So let's dive into a few common mistakes we see, because avoiding these really is most of the battle. Buying tools before defining CUI scope leads to overspending on the wrong protections. Assuming GCC high equals CMMC ready leads to a failed assessment despite real infrastructure investment. Ignoring evidence collection means your technical controls pass, but the audit fails on documentation. Treating policies as just paperwork means assessors find inconsistent enforcement. Skipping data governance before Copilot means AI surfaces sensitive data across the whole organization. Waiting too long forces rushed, expensive remediation under deadline pressure, and running duplicate third-party tools adds cost and complexity when the native capability already exists. Notice that almost none of these are technology failures. They're sequencing and process failures. So let me just form a level of kind of concreteness here with what we're seeing from our customers and a few different examples that we see here on the screen. First, we've got a large defense industrial-based contractor with over 10,000 users. They upgraded from E3 to G5 to strengthen level 2 readiness and prep for Copilot, but they had minimal labeling, no DLP, and were leaning on third-party email encryption. We delivered a label taxonomy, baseline DLP across their email, cloud, and endpoint, and Copilot-specific controls, all using native G5. The second example that we have here, a defense contractor that already had Varonis and Netscope. Their concern was a bit different, was conflict and duplicate enforcement. So we designed Purview DLP to complement those tools, not fight or work against them, and we built a roadmap to retire the overlap over time. The third example here, a federal IT services provider mid-GCC migration with no organization-wide DLP, some duplicate labels from different business units. So what we did for them was consolidated the label structure and prepared their ITAR and CUI controls for Copilot readiness. So what does a sane path look like in a roadmap? So this is Planet's recommendation, and the phases matter really as much as the activities. Assess first, weeks 1 and 2. Understand your CUI scope, your risk posture, your licensing gaps, and how mature your environment really is. Then decide around week 3, choosing between GCC, GCC high, an enclave, or remediation path, based on what the assessment actually found, not just guessing. Remediate in weeks 4 through 6, implementing the technical controls, policies, and documentation. Always operationalize on an ongoing basis, building your repeatable evidence, collection, and governance, as this is where that's never really done. And validate when you're ready with a mock assessment or the formal C3PAO assessment. We always recommend a mock, of course, first before you end up in your C3PAO. Those are not inexpensive. And so, of course, the mock just leads to uncover what potentially you may find before you end up in your C3PAO. I think the mistake here is jumping straight to remediate before you've assessed and decided. So for the executives on the call, I'll reframe all of this as risk, because that's the language that matters at the leadership level. A failed CMMC assessment means lost contract eligibility and revenue, full stop. Poor CUI scoping means you're either overspending or underprotecting digital data. The wrong licensing path leads to unplanned cost or a forced re-platforming. Weak evidence and documentation can sink you even when your technical controls are strong. There's no governance model that means compliance decays after the initial implementation. A late start forces rushed, expensive remediation, and a misaligned cloud environment leaves you carrying rework, migration, or the burden of running dual environments. Every one of these really is avoidable with the right sequence. Sorry, I went one too far. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make this real with a short live demo here. I'm going to turn it over to Bill, who's going to show you how sensitivity labels can protect your Copilot data estate.
Thanks, guys. Hey, everyone. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me. Small, short time together. So I'm going to talk about just a few things regarding the G5, DLP, sensitivity labels, and Copilot. So starting off, I have two DLP that are in place. There are two policies, one that's covering Acme Defense Systems, fictitious proprietary data. This policy is designed to detect and then block Copilot, which means it's going to detect it and alert and then block it and keep Copilot out. The same with our Acme CUI. That's going to do the same. It's going to detect someone tried to use Copilot with it and alert someone, and then also block it. We've got a few labels we're going to be working with. Kind of jumped ahead on that one. Right here. Right. Acme Defense Systems. Home of. I don't know. We're going to be working with our internal use, our CUI, proprietary, restricted, and we're actually going to be working with unlabeled data as well. Our CUI labels and our proprietary labels have two important functions removed from them, specifically the copy and extract content and the export content, both of which are super important for Copilot to be able to use a document, or for the semantic indexing process for the user or the organization to index content. So with those turned off, they're quite effective at keeping Copilot out. So first, the experience is going to be the same whether you're licensed or not in the Copilot chat app. As long as you're signed in on the unlicensed side, this level of security is not something that's not for pay. We're actually going to, I still have my prompt. Awesome. So for the first one, we're going to go ahead and say, hey, with this document as your source, and we are going to specify a CUI label document. And let's do Sentinel. Sentinel works. And I got my little cheat sheet here, which tells me what document is labeled with which. So I'm saying, hey, use this document, need you to rewrite it, expand upon it in technical detail, and then create me a docx. Please and thank you. We always say please and thank you because, when they take over the world, they'll remember and they'll say, hey, you know what, Bill, that guy's all right. He said please, and he said thank you. Let's see what happens here. Fully expecting. Awesome. Sorry, can't do it. This is labeled. So we detected that someone tried. An alert is going to be generated. We're going to see that pop up in the bottom right-hand corner. And then it's going to block it, which was you see here. Let's try proprietary. And let's go with oh boy. Proprietary. Let's go with SecOps. It's always a doozy. I like it. It's going to ask it to do the same thing, rewrite it, pleases and thank yous, create me a docx. Any second now, we should start seeing alerts pop up for that previous attempt to open. Same thing. Sorry, Bill, can't do it. Regardless of please and thank you, can't happen. So what does this actually look like when you're able to? I'm just going to select a restricted document, which, from our cheat sheet, we see Restricted is allowed to co-author. There is no Copilot restriction on it. So we should be able to get what we're looking for from that. We're going to use zero trust. Oh, I like that one better. Congressional hearing. That's awesome. All right. Basically, same thing. Here's your document source. This is what I need you to do. And then I need you to export it into its own docx. Please, thank you. Should be an alert coming on those other two. All right. So it looks like it wrote it. I extracted the full transcript. Again, that extract capability. But let's see what that looks like. Okay. Now, I'm going to just a couple important things here. As it lets me back in. Okay. Get rid of that one. So you'll notice that as the content was being generated, we had a shield pop up here, which is saying, hey, your source data is restricted, which is a pretty good indication that the content that's generated from that source should carry that label as well. It should inherit it. There's our alerts on the previous. And we do have it as restricted. So that is good stuff. All right. Before we check out the alerts, I definitely want to show you one more thing. Let's go ahead and gonna open up just a plain document. No bells, no whistles, no whistles. Now, pretty standard, right? GCC High Word, Copilot license. I've got my Copilot here. I've got my capability of using Copilot in both the sidebar, or I got my right click functionality. Right. And I've also got my side pane. I'm a big fan of the side pane. I love doing my research on the right and, creating on the left. Nonetheless, full Copilot capability. But what happens when you try to open a CUI or a proprietary label document, it's a little bit different. Okay, so we can see in the background here, we've got our regular plain Word document. We've got full Copilot functionality in the back. But when we open up the CUI document, we see no Copilot means no Copilot. All the Copilot functionality has been disabled for this particular document, no pane, no right click. And what's pretty key here is that actually that second behavior that we put on that label, that actually took care of our Word document summary, right? Prior, there were, sometimes the label didn't get configured right and you opened up, a CUI label document that explicitly said no Copilot. But since that one permission was still left in, you had no Copilot functionality, no right click menu, no top bar, but you had the meeting summary. And sure enough, underneath it, it said meeting summary generated by Copilot, right? So activating that second behavior on the label is actually what gets rid of that function as well. Before I let y'all go, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at some of those alerts, see what they look like. And again, I have it set to a low severity, so they generate the most. Looks like a DLP rule match on this guy. I mean, what can you say? Yeah, whew. He's in all these alerts. This is the policy that was violated, the document that was actually protected by that policy, and we're able to hop in. An alert generates an incident investigation, and we're able to take it from there. One thing I do want to mention, I do want to share, and I'm going to put a screenshot in the chat. If you give me just 1 second. Over the next few weeks, we're going to see some new functionality. Make it out for GCC labeling, DLP, and Copilot. This is specifically, I'm going to put this in the chat for y'all. So hang on 1 sec. All right. So the ability for, this stuff's great. Don't get, but what is there to put into place so that if I was to copy, a couple paragraphs from a sensitivity label document that's got, proprietary or CUI, what's to keep me from pasting that, and using that instead? Well, coming out over the next 3-4 weeks, starting to roll out next week, is the capability to prevent the right-click activity, not just in Copilot, but with other chat or other language models, rather. So take a look in your message center for MC1325443 and that screenshot there. For more information on when it's going to roll out into your tenant, it'll either say pending action or plan for change, whatever the status is. But once it's released, you'll have that capability and be able to lock this down even further. So pending any questions, comments you might have on what we covered today, thanks so much for your time. I know it was brief. Perhaps later, at another time we could spend more and talk more Copilot. But until then, thanks everyone.